You open Netflix. You scroll for a while. Nothing looks good. So you open YouTube. You find a video. 20 seconds in, you're already wondering what else is there. You check your phone. Reply to a message. Open another app. Scroll a little. Then somehow, you're back on YouTube looking for something else to watch. And the strange thing is, you're still bored. Think about how weird that is. We have more ways to entertain ourselves than any generation before us. Thousands of movies, millions of songs, games, podcasts, videos about almost anything you can imagine, all sitting inside a device we carry everywhere. There has probably never been a time when boredom had this much competition. And yet, somehow, everything can start to feel a little boring. The game you used to love. The show everyone says is amazing. The hobby you couldn't wait to get home to. Sometimes, even things you genuinely enjoy don't hold you the way they used to. So what changed? Did everything suddenly become less interesting? Or did something change in the way we experience it? Because one of the strange things about the human brain is that it can get used to almost anything. And that includes the things we love. If you enjoy understanding the strange things your mind does without you noticing, subscribe to Project Human. Now, let's start with something your brain does remarkably well. It gets used to things. Think about the last time you got something you really wanted. Maybe it was a new phone. For the first few days, you noticed everything. The screen looked amazing. You tried every feature. You probably handled it more carefully than necessary. A few weeks later, it was just your phone. Same screen, same phone, but a completely different feeling. This happens with much bigger things too. A new job can feel exciting until it becomes where you go every morning. A new house eventually becomes home. A song you can't stop playing eventually becomes a song you sometimes skip. Even good changes can slowly disappear into the background of everyday life. Psychologists have different ways of studying this kind of adjustment, including habituation and hedonic adaptation. But the basic idea is surprisingly simple. When something becomes familiar, we tend to react to it less strongly, and that's useful. Imagine if every familiar sound, object, and experience grabbed your attention as strongly as it did the first time. You'd struggle to focus on anything. So the brain learns what is familiar. It turns the volume down and starts paying attention to what has changed, what is unexpected, what is new. Most of the time, this works beautifully. But modern life has discovered something very interesting about that system. If the brain likes noticing what is new, we can give it something new almost whenever it asks. Scroll. New face. Scroll. New joke. Scroll. New argument, new story, new song, new notification, new video, new thing, again and again and again, which brings us to one of the most misunderstood chemicals in the human brain, dopamine. And no, your dopamine receptors probably haven't been fried. But what dopamine actually does is much more interesting. Dopamine gets blamed for almost everything these days. Spend too much time on your phone? Dopamine. Can't concentrate? Dopamine. Everything feels boring? Someone will probably tell you that you've damaged your dopamine system and need a detox. But that's not really how it works. Dopamine isn't simply a chemical that makes you feel good. It plays an important role in motivation, learning, and reward. It helps the brain learn what might be worth paying attention to. Imagine you check your phone. Nothing interesting. You check again later. Still nothing. Then the next time, there's a message you've been waiting for. That unexpected reward matters. Your brain learns. Checking can sometimes lead to something interesting. And importantly, you don't know exactly when that interesting thing is going to appear. The next post might make you laugh. The next video might be better. The next message might be important. So you keep going. Not necessarily because what you're looking at right now is enjoyable. Sometimes you're already bored with it. You're looking for what comes after it. And modern technology makes that incredibly easy. For most of human history, getting bored with something didn't immediately produce another 100 options. If a conversation became quiet, there was a quiet moment. If you were waiting for someone, you waited. If you were walking somewhere, you walked. Now a few seconds of emptiness can disappear with one movement of your thumb. There is always another option. And that creates a strange habit. We become very good at leaving. A video slows down, leave. A song doesn't grab you immediately, skip. An article looks long, leave. A conversation pauses, check the phone. And none of this means your brain is broken. Your brain is doing something it has always done. It is noticing change, looking for information, learning what might be rewarding. The difference is that now, something new is almost always one swipe away. And you might think having that much choice would make boredom easier to escape. Strangely, sometimes it does the opposite. In a series of experiments, researchers asked people to watch online videos. Some watched without jumping around. Others were able to switch between videos or skip through them. You might expect having more control to make the experience less boring, but in key experiments the opposite happened. When people kept switching, they reported feeling more bored. They also felt less satisfied and less engaged with what they were watching. Think about that. We switch because we're bored, but the switching itself can make it harder to become absorbed in what we're watching. And enjoyment sometimes needs time. A movie can take a while to pull you in. A book can take several pages before you stop noticing that you're reading. A conversation can begin awkwardly and become the best part of your evening. There is a moment between starting something and becoming absorbed in it. But if we leave during that moment, we never get there. That's where a strange loop can begin. You feel bored, so you switch. The new thing catches your attention for a moment. That feeling fades. You switch again. Another little burst of novelty. Then another. Eventually you can spend an hour consuming entertainment without ever becoming deeply interested in any of it. You've seen a lot, but you haven't really been anywhere. And this doesn't only happen with videos. We watch television while scrolling through our phones. We eat while watching something. We listen to something while replying to messages. Each activity is competing with another activity for our attention. So the moment one becomes slightly slower, something else is waiting. You might even reach for your phone without deciding to. Open an app. Close it. Then a minute later, open it again. There may not be anything you particularly want to see. Reaching for stimulation has simply become an easy response to an empty moment. Waiting somewhere? Phone. A conversation pauses? Phone. Video taking too long? Another video. Nothing terrible is happening in these moments. They're just empty, and we've become incredibly good at making sure they don't stay that way. But real life has a lot of empty space, and real life doesn't have a skip button. Most meaningful things in life are not designed to entertain you every few seconds. A book has slow pages. Exercise has boring repetitions. Learning something new can involve doing the same thing badly for weeks. Work has stretches where nothing exciting happens. Relationships have ordinary days. Even your favorite people are sometimes going to tell you stories you've already heard. That's life. And if every slow moment becomes a reason to look for something faster, ordinary experiences are entering a competition they were never designed to win. Think about reading a book. You read a page. Nothing dramatic happens. Your phone is beside you. Maybe you check it quickly. Then you return to the book. A few minutes later, you check again. The book may not actually be boring. It simply hasn't had your uninterrupted attention for very long. There is a difference between looking at something and becoming absorbed in it. You can see this when people rediscover an old hobby. Someone who used to draw for hours now gets restless after 10 minutes. Someone who loved reading struggles to finish a chapter. Someone starts a movie they genuinely wanted to see and ends up scrolling while the movie plays in the background. They might conclude, "I don't enjoy this anymore." And sometimes that's true. People change. Interests change. Something you loved 5 years ago doesn't have to follow you forever. But sometimes the activity hasn't changed very much. What has changed is how much uninterrupted attention we're giving it. And familiarity adds another problem. The extraordinary has a habit of becoming ordinary. You get the promotion, move into the apartment, buy the thing, reach the goal. For a while, it feels different. Then one morning, you wake up, and the thing you once dreamed about is simply part of your life. That's one reason chasing the next exciting thing can become endless. Because new has an expiry date. The new phone becomes the old phone. The new show becomes another show. The new purchase becomes something you own. The new achievement becomes something you did. So we look for the next thing. Wanting new experiences isn't bad. Novelty can be wonderful. Curiosity is part of what makes life interesting. The problem begins when new becomes the only thing that can hold us. Because much of a good life is repetitive. We wake up in the same home, see many of the same people, take familiar roads, do familiar work, and if familiar automatically means boring, eventually almost everything becomes boring. Maybe we don't need an endless supply of exciting things. Maybe we need to become a little better at staying with ordinary ones. And to do that, we may have to stop treating boredom like an emergency. Boredom has a bad reputation. The moment nothing is happening, we look for something to happen. And to be fair, sometimes boredom really is telling you that you need a change. But sometimes your attention simply hasn't found anywhere to settle yet. Think about going for a walk without anything playing in your ears. The first few minutes can feel surprisingly empty. No music, no podcast, no messages. Just walking. Your mind starts looking for something. You might reach for your phone without even thinking about it. But if you keep walking, you may start noticing things. The weather, a conversation nearby, a building you've passed 100 times, your own thoughts. Nothing dramatic appeared. You simply stayed. And we don't only use stimulation when we're bored. Sometimes we use it to avoid the possibility of becoming bored. Something while cooking. Something while cleaning. Something while eating. Sometimes even something while we're trying to fall asleep. Silence can start to feel like wasted space. But every empty moment doesn't need to be filled. Sometimes after boredom comes curiosity. Sometimes an idea. Sometimes rest. And sometimes nothing happens at all. You just sit there for 5 minutes. That's allowed too. The point isn't that boredom is secretly wonderful. Usually it isn't. The point is that boredom is tolerable. It doesn't always require an immediate solution. And once you stop treating every quiet moment like a problem, you give your attention a chance to settle, instead of constantly giving it somewhere new to run. So what do you do with all of this? You don't have to delete every app on your phone. You don't have to stop watching short videos. And you definitely don't need to spend a week trying to detox from dopamine. Dopamine isn't a toxin. There is nothing to detox from. Instead, try something much less dramatic. Stay. The next time you choose a movie, give it a little longer before deciding you need something else. If you pick up a book, read without checking your phone every few pages. If you're having a conversation, let the conversation be the only thing happening for a while. If you're listening to a song you love, just listen to the song. It sounds almost ridiculously simple. But you're giving one experience enough time to become an experience. Sometimes enjoyment doesn't arrive immediately. Sometimes attention has to settle first. You can make that easier by removing the competition. You don't need your phone beside you while you're watching something on another screen. You don't need 3 forms of entertainment happening at once. You don't need to answer every notification the moment it appears. Choose one thing occasionally. Then let that one thing have you. And leave a few spaces empty. Stand in a queue without immediately reaching for your phone. Walk somewhere without always putting something in your ears. Eat a meal occasionally without watching anything. You don't have to do this all day, just occasionally. Long enough to remember that an empty moment isn't an emergency. Maybe you'll notice something. Maybe you'll think about something. Maybe you'll simply be bored. That's fine too, because the goal isn't to make every second of your life exciting. No human life works like that. The goal is to stop demanding that every second should be. There is one important distinction here. Sometimes nothing excites me anymore means something more than ordinary boredom. If you've lost interest or pleasure in most things you normally enjoy, and that feeling continues or begins affecting your daily life, it's worth taking seriously. Persistent loss of interest or pleasure can occur with depression and other health conditions. That's different from getting restless halfway through a movie. And it deserves more than a productivity trick or a lecture about screen time. But for the ordinary moments we've been talking about, there is a smaller experiment worth trying. The next time you're bored, don't immediately ask, "What else is there?" Wait a little. Stay. See what happens. Think back to the person at the beginning of this video. Netflix. Nothing looks good. YouTube. Nothing holds their attention. Phone. Another app. Another video. Another scroll. Now imagine the same evening again. Same person. Same phone. Same television. Same life. They choose something to watch. The phone goes down. For the first few minutes, they're restless. They stay anyway. And eventually, they stop thinking about what else they could be watching. Later, they walk outside. No headphones this time. Nothing amazing happens. A car passes. Someone laughs somewhere nearby. The air feels good. They notice the sky. Ordinary things. Things that were probably there yesterday too. Their life hasn't suddenly become more exciting. The world hasn't changed. But for a few moments, they're actually in it. Maybe nothing stopped being interesting. Maybe we've just become very good at leaving before things have the chance to become interesting. Because when the next thing is always one swipe away, staying can feel strangely difficult. But sometimes the thing you're looking for isn't next. Sometimes it's already here. If you enjoy exploring the strange little things our minds do every day, subscribe to Project Human. There is plenty more about being human that we're still trying to understand.